I call the meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 9 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. Members and witnesses may speak in the official language of their choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. If interpretation is lost, please inform me immediately and we will ensure interpretation is properly restored before resuming the proceedings. The raise hand feature at the bottom of the screen can be used anytime if you wish to speak or alert the chair. Today, we will be considering the supplementary estimates C for the year 2021-2022. On behalf of the committee members, I would like to welcome the Honorable Sean Fraser, Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship, as well as the officials from the IRCC. We are joined today by Madam Katrina Tapley, Deputy Minister, Madam Marianne Campbell-Jarvis, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Strategic and Program Policy, Mr. Daniel Mills, Senior Assistant Deputy Minister, Operations, Madam Jennifer McIntyre, Assistant Deputy Minister, Afghanistan, Mr. Hugh St. Pierre, Assistant Deputy Minister of the Finance, Security and Administration. Thank you, Minister, for joining us today. Hope you are feeling well. Before we go into a hearing from the Minister, just a few comments for the benefit of the witnesses. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. When you are ready to speak, you can click on the microphone icon to activate your mic. A reminder that all comments should be addressed through the chair. Interpretation in this video conference will work very much like a regular committee meeting. When speaking, please speak slowly and clearly. When you are not speaking, your mic should be on mute. Witnesses have 5 minutes for opening remarks. I will be giving you a warning with a 1-minute card, 30-second, and then a red card showing that the time is up. So with that, I would like to welcome Minister Fraser, who will begin our discussion with 5 minutes of opening remarks, and then we will go into a round of questionings. Thank you, Minister, for appearing before the committee once again, and hope you are feeling well. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you, Chair. You're so very kind. And before I begin, I've just learned moments ago that one of our new committee members, Garnet Genius, has had an additional child, and I want to extend my hearty congratulations. There's no greater joy in the world. I can reassure everyone as a parent. That's fantastic news. I'm so pleased to be here once again, a few times in just a few weeks, to have the opportunity to come join you before the Parliamentary Standing Committee, and I really appreciate the invitation to join you. Comme je l'ai mentionné précédemment, je souhaite.
As I've previously mentioned, I aim to work with all committee members as we endeavour to make Canada's immigration system the best system in the world.
We have the ability to ensure that Canada remains a top destination of choice for the world's most talented and skilled people, and to welcome newcomers to our country that make our communities more vibrant and dynamic places to live. As this committee is well aware, Canada aims to continue attracting record numbers of skilled workers, including those who will help our economic recovery from the pandemic. We also continue to prioritize family reunification and help the world's most vulnerable. In support of these commitments, I'm pleased to present to the committee some of the key allocations in IRCC's Supplementary Estimate C, which total $174.3 million. The most significant allocation, you'll be pleased to know, is $118 million to support IRCC's operating expenditures. This includes funding to process temporary resident visas for workers, students, and visitors, temporary accommodations for unvaccinated and asymptomatic asylum seekers who do not have a suitable quarantine plan, and funding for proof of vaccination credentials. IRCC demande également un montant de 46,8 millions.
IRCC is also seeking $46.8 million for the Canada-Quebec Accord on Immigration. As the committee is aware, under this accord, the government of Quebec maintains responsibility for immigrant settlement and integration services in return for an annual grant.
These estimates is $4 million to extend the racialized newcomer women pilot. The aim of this pilot is to increase the employment supports and services for newcomer women to help them find jobs and support their career advancement. We've already seen good success with this pilot, and that's why we'll be extending it for at least another year. Nous voulons nous assurer que tous les nouveaux arrivants au Canada puissent.
We want to ensure that all newcomers to Canada can feel successful and contribute to the economy and their communities, which includes immigrant women.
Needs of all newcomers and serve the interests of Canadians. Madam Chair, the estimates we're discussing today will help us advance those goals. Once again, thank you for this opportunity to address the committee today, and I'd be more than pleased to answer any questions you may have. Thank you. Merci.
Thank you, Minister. Thanks for your remarks. You only took 2.5 minutes. We will now proceed to our round of questioning. We will start with Mr. Helen. Mr. Helen, you will have 6 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. First and foremost, Minister, we all are wishing you a speedy recovery. Hope to see you in this room again very soon, joining us in person. I've been contacted by many Ukrainians and Canadians that are of Ukrainian heritage. Many of the opposition MPs have been calling for the same thing. The calls that I'm getting, they're saying that the programs that were announced today did not go far enough. There was a motion that was passed on Tuesday in this committee, and it was with the reluctant, the Liberals had voted against it. This was a motion that included visa-free travel for the Ukrainians. Will you accept the will of this committee with the motion that was passed to offer visa-free travel for Ukrainians?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first, let me thank my critic with Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition for his question and for the conversations we've had over the last couple of days. So today's announcement, for those who are not aware, is positioning Canada to welcome an unlimited number of Ukrainians who are fleeing the war. The mechanism that we're using is designed to get people here as fast as possible. With respect to the issue of visa-free travel, that's actually one of the first things that I looked into, because my inclination was to say that might be the quickest way to get people here. When I dug in and I realized that certain regulatory changes would need to be made and certain updates to our IT systems internal to our department and potentially with Canadian Airlines as well, the timelines to implement that would take 12 to 14 weeks. And I didn't think we had 12 to 14 weeks. We'll be able to stand up a new system much faster. In addition, there are certain security concerns that we want to protect against, in particular fighters and agitators who've been in the Donbass fighting against Ukraine for the past 8 years that we want to screen out. So we've taken the advanced step to position biometric kits in Vienna, in Warsaw, in Bucharest, and we have 30 additional units throughout Europe that will be able to process people for security as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Minister. I only have a limited amount of time, so I'll move on to my next question since it wasn't clear whether it was a yes or no. The PR program that was announced for the Ukrainians, a pathway to them, what is the timeline on when this will be executed? Just a date. When do you think this will be implemented?
I can't give you a date because I need to complete consultations with the Ukrainian-Canadian Congress, and I won't prejudge the consultations that we undertake, but it will be advanced as quickly as possible. But I will remind you that people who are eligible will be able to come to Canada on a temporary basis and apply from here, so there will be no delay in the people fleeing the war to arrive safely in Canada.
Respectfully, some of those delays are still we're seeing them. There's people are still calling the hotline that are being told that either they're not going to return back to Ukraine, and some of them are stuck in this loophole where they're being told that if their visas, they were applied for a year or two ago, they're not considered under the priority program. Moving on, you announced about 6,000 applications were approved since January. How many of those people were already in Canada?
Actually, the number of 6,131 as of yesterday is not applications that are approved. That's people who have arrived in Canada since January 1st.
None of those numbers were already in Canada?
All of those numbers are people who are in Canada. Jasraj, I'm not sure I understand the question. Could you just clarify for me?
The number that you gave, about 6,000, whatever number you gave, were those applications that you said were approved, were they for people that were already in Canada, or these are people that were approved outside of Canada then came here?
Those are our arrivals. If you would like me to provide documents to back up who's come here under what stream on the back end of today's committee meeting, I think
it would be appreciated if you could table that for this committee. Moving on, I've been getting a lot of calls, Minister, about the difference that people are seeing between Ukraine and Afghan interpreters. Respectfully, I've been getting a lot of concerns that why aren't Afghans being treated the same way that the Ukrainian community has been treated? If you could please answer for those concerns.
Yeah, thank you. And this is an important question. And let me start by saying our commitment to Afghans who've served alongside Canada or who qualify for our programs is unwavering. It's one of the most substantial commitments globally, and we will not waver. There are now more than 8,500 Afghan refugees who've been resettled. The difference is really a factor of the situation on the ground, not our decision to treat anyone differently. With respect to Ukraine, people have the ability to leave west of Ukraine through countries that we've secured agreements.
Respectfully, Minister, would you agree that even though your department was, they should have been prepared, they were briefed January of 2021 that Kabul was going to fall, but they didn't take any action? We keep repeatedly hearing this from the Afghanistan committee. They were not prepared. That, we're seeing the same kind of thing now, and we're not seeing any type of urgency for those Afghans that are supposed to come here. I'll just give another quick example that there's been the Sikh, Hindu, and Hazara communities are still stuck wherever they are with no hope that they see. WSO, World Sikh Organization, the Manmeet Singh Puller Foundation have been working for years to get those people here. And now they see absolutely no hope because it looks like you've completely abandoned those Afghan refugees. I sponsored a family in 2015. It took 4 years to bring that family here. What do you say to those organizations who see no hope anymore?
Very quickly, that we are working every day to accelerate the arrival of each of the groups that you've mentioned, including our work with the Manmeet Bhullar Foundation to bring Afghan Sikhs to Canada. This issue has my full attention, and we are going to work every day to ensure we can resettle people safely in Canada.
Thank you, Minister. Time is up. We will now proceed to Mr. Dhaliwal. Mr. Dhaliwal, you will have 6 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the Minister. Minister, I want to commend you for announcing 2 new immigration streams for Ukrainians instead of waiting for weeks for this visa-free travel. And could you please touch on your plans, bringing in these Ukrainian peoples to Canada in this difficult time and humanitarian crisis would not affect negatively the other immigration streams that are already existing?
First of all, thank you very much, Suk, for the question. We started preparing for this in mid-January, January 19th, to be more specific. It required us to set up essentially infrastructure in the area by moving biometric kits to regions, ensuring we had the personnel on hand to deal with a potential influx of people who were seeking to come to Canada. We then introduced new measures to make it easier for people already in Canada to stay and to work. Today, we announce additional measures for Ukrainians who are seeking to flee the war who can come to Canada. And we've tried to make it as simple as possible and used a model that's based on the existing temporary stream that has incredible horsepower that's used to processing up to 2 million people a year already. So we've targeted a tool that was on the shelf, pared down the administrative burdens that usually lead to refusals, and tried to accelerate the process of people getting here. Now, we've done it in a way that I think will minimize the impact on other streams, but to be clear, anytime you ask an immigration system to do more, it's going to result in certain pressures on different streams. We do expect, at least in the short term, that it will have some of the resources dedicated to Ukraine that would be the same people who would ordinarily process certain other cases. But we will be able to fill in resources on the back end. So over the long term, we'll be able to play catch up. I think it was the right thing to do to respond to the most important humanitarian crisis in the moment. But I think we have to continue to advance the other measures in Afghanistan, continue to settle refugees from other parts of the world, and continue to process our ordinary lines of business for economic and family unification purposes as best we can.
Minister, you have also touched on this racialized newcomer women pilot program that was introduced by the Liberal government. Could you please touch on the type of activities that are funded by the pilot project and the success of the program since its introduction?
Thanks very much. And I'm glad you've asked this question because I find this issue often flies under the radar. When we look at resettling people, it's one thing to say we can bring a lot of people here, and that's important. Our communities need to continue to grow. But we have to make sure that we set people up for success when they arrive as well. The Racialized Newcomer Women Pilot is going to help ensure that people adjust to life in their community and allow them the skills to not just do well, but to gain employment and to advance their careers when they're here. The response that we're seeing from stakeholders who benefited from this is that it's actually working. So the reason I raised it in my remarks today is because there's additional funding, including in the Supplementary Estimate C, that allows us to extend this program for at least another year. One of the things that we need to continue to do is assess whether our pilot programs are working, and if they are, look at extending and making them permanent. We did it recently with the Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program, which is now permanent, and now we're extending the Racialized Women Newcomer Pilot because we're experiencing success with those who've tapped into the benefits of the program.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, I've been approached by the local Sikh Gurdwara leaders regarding concerns over visa requirements and immigration policies for religious workers. Could you please touch on some of the measures being considered to help Gurdwaras that rely on religious workers from abroad?
First of all, Suk, thank you for raising this. And let me just thank the religious workers and members of Gurdwaras across Canada for their service to our communities over the course of this pandemic. Their generosity has been astounding, and I am so grateful for their presence in our communities. There's a particular issue facing religious workers who've had a hard time coming because of the way that travel was impacted during the pandemic and the usual practice of sort of having a rotational basis where these workers come to Canada and leave and are replaced by new religious workers to continue to meet the demands of these important religious institutions in our communities. What we've ended up doing is working to identify any of the religious workers who are destined to come work in our Gurdwaras across Canada to ensure that they're processed in an expeditious way. We've now got quite a few approvals for folks who are actually have applications in the inventory, and I expect in the next few weeks we're going to see additional arrivals in time for a very busy season, which I think you can appreciate is going to be necessary just weeks from now.
Thank you, Minister. Minister, your predecessor was able to bring in Sikh and Hindu refugees from Afghanistan that were settled or that were parked in India. And I'm sure you're very passionate and working hard on this project as well. Could you please elaborate a bit more if you weren't able to finish Mr. Helland's question?
Yeah, thank you very much. So there's a number of organizations in the 30 seconds or so I have to answer the question. I won't do it justice. But there's a number of organizations that are working to bring people from the different communities that you've referenced. I mentioned specifically the Manmeet Bhullar Foundation that's been working with our team to see if we can bring more Afghan Sikhs to Canada. We do expect that we're going to continue to see more arrivals in the fairly short term as these numbers continue to grow, now more than 8,500 Afghan refugees, with more arriving every week. I do anticipate our partnership with some of these organizations who are not just seeking to bring people here, but are willing to support them when they arrive, is going to lead to a very successful settlement outcome in the very short term.
Thank you, Minister. We will now proceed to Mr. Brunel Desseb. Mr. Brunel Desseb, you will have 6 minutes for your round of questioning.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Bienvenue, Monsieur.
Thank you, Chair. Welcome. You're becoming a preferred visitor for this committee, and I wish you a speedy recovery. I'm very happy to see you again. Now, I do have a question. When the Liberals voted against the motion that was passed against removing visas in committee, your political party's argument was related to security issues. All we heard about was security issues. I'd like to know, can you explain to me how a pro-Russian Ukrainian can not get through the paperwork through a biometric test? And how could biometric test prevent somebody from coming to Canada? I'm not sure I understand this.
This is really important, and it's something that I've become acutely aware of, really in the context of our effort to resettle Afghan refugees, and it's obviously come up again. So for those who aren't aware, 80% or so of the cases that are inadmissible by virtue of security reasons are uncovered through biometric analysis. We are able to partner with our like-minded countries around the world because we share intelligence with them for individuals who are potentially pose a security threat to Canada. So by tapping into our partners' databases of individuals that may be part of foreign fighting forces, for example, we can understand with a greater degree of certainty who these individuals are and deny them access to Canada if they present a security threat to Canada.
Monsieur le ministre, vous êtes en train de me dire que 80%.
Minister, you're telling me that 80% of pro-Russian Ukrainians will be found out through your biometric testing? No? So how can a biometric test take a pro-Russian Ukrainian be prevented from coming to Canada? I don't think it'll change anything. So therefore, what's the difference between biometric testing abroad versus in Canada?
No, I just to be clear, the stat that you described is a misinterpretation of what I've said. I've said 80% of the cases that are deemed inadmissible are discovered by biometrics, not 80% of the Ukrainian pro-Russian fighters. It's a very different point that I'm making. When we have the ability to have a person's fingerprints, photographs, etc., and we can run them through a database that we have in partnership with other international partners, we can better identify people who present a security threat to Canada. It will reduce the number of people who do pose a security threat that would come. But just to be clear, a primary motivation for the path that we've established is speed as well. Setting up a different opportunity for visa-free travel would have delayed things by a few months, and that was unacceptable to me.
Bon, OK, je pense qu'on se comprend pas, mais...
Well, I don't think we're understanding each other, but at some point we'll come back to this. Now, your government prioritized Ukrainian-related applications, and I salute you for that. But the human resources to process these, are you familiar with this? Have you hired new people, or are you doing this just with what you currently have in-house?
So with respect to Ukraine, let's not forget that the further Russian invasion into Ukraine's sovereign territory started 7 days ago. We responded immediately and, in fact, in advance with the resources that we had. We will be looking to profile additional resources to help out with the effort to make sure that our other lines of business are not impacted more than is necessary. But in the short term, you're right. It does require us to put people who are already on deck to help out with the emergency. But over the long term, we do intend to make sure that the resources are put in place so we continue to meet the goals that we've set for our department to resettle newcomers in accordance with the standards we hope to achieve. But there will be short-term pressures.
Donc, est-ce que vous pensez que ça met...
So do you think that this endangers the processing of the other applications, for example, Afghanistan, or foreign workers, students, family reunification?
So I don't expect it will have a significant impact on Afghanistan because that's a separate humanitarian effort, and we're using something more akin to a temporary residence visa stream. There is the potential for a shorter-term impact on some of our lines of business around other temporary residency visas, around the work permits, around study permits, which we're also processing for Ukrainians. And there might be some impact on other lines of business, but we do intend to deploy the resources that were recently made available, and I'm hopeful that we'll still be able to see progress. For what it's worth, just for the awareness of the committee, as a result of some of the investments we've made, including the 500 staff we hired not too long ago, there's now been more than 100,000 approvals for permanent residency in January and February of this year. So the process has picked up pace, but we do expect there will be some impact as a result of Ukraine.
Vous avez mis sur... Excusez, ça se finit dans... OK, excusez avec la...
Sorry, I had to wait for the interpretation to finish. Now, you set up a designated line for Ukraine applications. Is that correct?
Yes.
Oui, OK. Est-ce que c'est la même...
Is it the same line as for Afghanistan?
No.
OK, parfait. Donc, c'est une ligne...
Okay, so it's a separate line. Excellent. Do you know how much the line and the staff assigned to it will cost?
I don't have that figure in front of me. We can probably provide that after the
À ce
meeting at
moment-là,
some point.
peut-être, ouais, c'est ça, on le fournira.
So yes, please, and just for information, and quickly, there are witnesses on the Afghanistan committee who are telling us that it would be good to send more staff to Pakistan to help manage the Afghan refugees. Are you planning to do this?
Madam Chair, I'm out of time, but we'll do whatever is necessary to process people as quickly as possible. We'll need to work with our partners in the region, including Pakistan in this instance. But I think we don't have time to complete an answer, given I've been
Maybe
shown
when
the
we
red card.
come to the second round, you will get an opportunity. We will now proceed to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 6 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to the Minister, and I also hope that you'll have a speedy recovery. The Safi family fled the Taliban and were in the refugee camp in Ukraine. With the unprovoked invasion from Russia, they find themselves fleeing once again. And having just given birth to her daughter, the Safi family made numerous attempts to cross to the Slovakian border. At one point, they were told that the border is open to everyone except Afghans, while they noted others are allowed without passports or any sorts of identification to cross. Given the outright discriminatory practices the Safi family experience, will the minister provide targeted supports and work with the Minister of Foreign Affairs and use diplomatic channels to ensure ethnic minorities such as Afghans, Indian, and African students who have faced discrimination in their attempts to flee Putin's war in Ukraine have equal access to reach and cross borders?
Thank you to the member for this important question. Any kind of discrimination based on a person's skin color or country of origin is completely unacceptable to me. I was pleased to see a statement issued by the Ukrainian foreign minister to a similar effect, to insist that safe passage should be provided to everyone fleeing the war. We're also interested in looking what Canada may do for people who may not qualify for an easy return to their own country, who had some kind of permanent status in Ukraine that may be discriminated against in this fashion. But let me just be unequivocal in calling upon those who are working the borders to the west of Ukraine that discrimination against a person based on their country of origin or skin color cannot be accepted.
Yes, that's exactly the problem. The laws allow for it, but the practice is different, and that is critical. And I hope Canada will step up pressure in that regard to make sure that discrimination is not taking place at the border there. Ms. Safi's family is seeking to come to Canada as refugees, and they have sent documents to IRCC. But to date, there has not even been an acknowledgement from IRCC. Will the minister look into this case and help this family and others like them come to Canada expeditiously?
Certainly, we can't discuss the specifics of any case. I'm happy to look into whatever sensitive cases may come across our desk. There are a number of people who've come from Afghanistan through Ukraine to Canada already. To the extent there are others who are there, obviously every file is unique and I can't state perfect timelines for everyone. But to the extent we can look at specific files, we're always happy to do that.
I'll be sending a letter then with detailed information on this case to the minister. As well, though, I would urge that additional support needs to be given to those who are in the refugee camps in Ukraine. They need assistance to get to safety, and it is absolutely paramount that Canada opens their borders to welcome them as well. I'm glad to see the minister announce that biometrics will be collected in neighboring countries for those fleeing Putin's war today. So will the minister do the same as witnesses at the Afghanistan Special Committee suggested for Afghans? These are unprecedented times and therefore call for unprecedented action.
We've been working to try to set up that kind of an arrangement for some time. If we could secure biometrics in country, that would be ideal. One of the challenges that we run into, though, remains the securing safe passage for individuals outside of Afghanistan. To the extent that they could get outside of Afghanistan, absolutely, we would be willing to provide biometrics in third countries.
NGOs at the Afghanistan Committee actually offer that they would be able to provide on-the-ground assistance to the government to help people get to a third country, including those who are retired military personnel. I would urge the minister to look into those options and to work with NGOs on the ground to do exactly that. Will the minister expand the extended family sponsorship measure announced this morning for Ukrainians to Afghans as well?
So we are working to extend family reunification models for folks who worked as interpreters that have made it to Canada previously. I'm interested in how this is going to go with the family sponsorship pathway. I think we have a little bit of work to do. I'm not prepared to make a new announcement today beyond the one I made just a couple of hours ago, but it strikes me that family sponsorship is an innovative opportunity for us to bring people to Canada, as I said before in a different context, that they not just get here, but they be supported. So I'm very interested to see how this plays out, and I think it provides an opportunity for further consideration in the future.
Well, I can tell the minister support allowing for extended families to be sponsored to come to Canada is a successful immigration measure. I can tell you, some may say that I'm not that successful, but I'm a family member who was sponsored by an extended family to come to Canada more than, many years ago, let's just say. And I think this needs to be put in place, not just in the time of humanitarian crises, but I think actually regularly for immigration measures. I urge the ministers to undertake that. And time is of the essence. We need to actually move forward with Afghans as well and not wait to see how a pilot goes. They don't have the time to wait. Will the minister increase the levels for privately sponsored refugees and expedite processing so that Canadians who are able and wish to help in this humanitarian crisis are able to do so?
I am interested in leveraging the private sponsorship model and increasing humanitarian levels as evidenced by the recent immigration levels plan. I think we do at a certain point in time run up to the ability of our department to process an unlimited number of people seeking to come to Canada as refugees. But my interest is in leveraging whatever tools we have to bring people here in large numbers, to do the right thing for the world, but also to maintain a focus on both economic and family reunification. And it's a tricky exercise when you're trying to establish that levels plan and meet all of the needs of our communities. But the answer to your question is yes, I'm interested in continuing to grow our private sponsorship models in Canada.
On the issue around new
Interrupting Ms.
staff
Kwan, your
resources-
time. Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Kwan. Your time is up. We will now proceed to our second round. Mr. Redikop, you will have 5 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and thanks for being here, Minister. And just wanted to mention, I met with Edward Gelabay in my office last week, and he was very thankful for being allowed to stay in Canada. So I appreciate your last-minute help, but hopefully in the future, your department can respond a bit more quickly in cases like this. I want to talk about student direct stream first. I wrote you in December 2nd last year about including Bangladesh in the student direct stream, and it's proven that this is a much more reliable pathway to increase approval rates for students. And it's been 3 months since I've not heard an answer from you. The High Commissioner of Bangladesh appeared at this committee in February and implored us to make a recommendation that his country be included in the SDS. You have many Bangladeshis watching these proceedings right now. The High Commissioner is very engaged in this. Students in Bangladesh are very interested. They are the brightest and the best that Bangladesh has to offer, and of course, they're willing to share them with us. They bring great benefits to our country. And so my question for you is, do you support Bangladesh being included in the student direct stream, and will you immediately instruct your officials to make this happen?
So first of all, I'm not going to immediately make directions or instruction in this committee, but I am very, very open to expanding the student direct stream to different countries. I think where it has been implemented, it's been shown to have an incredible success rate. The reason that I don't want to do things immediately is we see it successful because the legwork goes into its implementation before the announcements are made. We want to make sure that we give our officials and department staff the opportunity to partner with financial institutions and organizations on the ground in different countries, so we don't make an announcement that is not set up for failure. If we do the legwork first and figure out that we can find partners that will allow us to have the program succeed, I'm certainly open to it.
What sort of a timeline are we looking at? Like, Pakistan was added in 2019. Are we talking a week, a month, a year, 10 years? What's the timeline?
Look, I don't have a specific date for you, I'm afraid. And I think in the second half of the meeting, if you wanted to speak with the officials about some of the steps that would be involved to actually achieve that kind of progress, I think they'd be able to describe for you what would go into it to get a better sense of what's involved.
Okay, so regarding Ukraine and these new programs that you have put in place, you've said there's no limit to the number of applicants that are going to be able to apply from the Ukraine. So does that mean that your overall numbers for the year are going to be increasing?
No, and I think there's a really important distinction. Our immigration levels plan refers to permanent residents. What we're doing is a very innovative thing with the response to Ukraine is we're leveraging a temporary stream but extending the timelines that people are allowed to remain in Canada for up to 2 years, and then providing them with an open work permit. So it's a different program that doesn't impact our overall immigration levels. And one of the reasons we chose this pathway is because it leverages one of the most powerful streams that exist in our immigration system, which is used to processing up to 2 million people a year who may come as tourists, for example, and it won't have an impact on our immigration levels plan.
So maybe to look at it a different way, you said that you're going to shift resources from different countries in order to, or for different streams, I'm not exactly sure. Are some countries going to be losing out in the short term because of this shift?
Not specific countries, but if you think of it this way, the people who are working to process temporary residency visas today are some of the same people who will be processing applications under this new express authority to travel to Canada for Ukraine. So to the extent that there are people who have applications to come visit Canada as a tourist, there could be some impact. I do think we can mitigate these impacts over time with further investments to backstop the changes that we've made. And by not pulling them out of certain other programs, I think we can protect against a significant impact on some of the permanent residency streams. But if we have the same people processing these new applications as we're processing temporary residence visas and work permits and study permits, there will be some impact, but we're doing everything we can to mitigate the extent of that impact.
Okay, so in response to Mr. Dollywall's questions about resources, you mentioned the biometric kits were being moved to Eastern Europe. What is the capacity of our embassies and consulates in Eastern Europe to process these applications, and how much time will the biometrics burden add to the processing time?
So it won't necessarily add anything because we can process biometrics in parallel to the processing of the application for the new travel document. The average processing time for a biometrics assessment is a few days, maybe 5 days or so. And that can be done within the period that the other application is being processed. But just to give you a sense of the scale of what our capacity is.
Maybe if I could I just interrupt, because there's another, I think, important question. There are Russians that are forced to fight for Putin, and they're now surrendering as prisoners. What is the plan for these guys who might want asylum in Canada?
Right now, the program we've announced applies to Ukrainian nationals who are fleeing the war. To the extent that new facts emerge, I think we have to be very cautious in how we proceed because we want to make sure that we're not sparing any effort. We can revisit this question when we have more time, but this is a phenomenon that's emerged literally in the last number of hours and days, and I would hate to prejudge what.
Sorry for interrupting, Minister. Your time is up. We will now proceed to Mr. Al-Khouri. Mr. Al-Khouri, you will have 5 minutes. You can please begin.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Monsieur le Ministre.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, thank you very much for your generosity in coming to see us, explain things to us, and inform the committee during these difficult times.
Many desperate people around the world, their hope rely on your shoulder in this difficult time because they are experiencing difficult life in their country as Ukraine, Afghanistan, and other countries also in the world. Thanks for your effort. Première question, Monsieur le Ministre, est-ce que si vous pouvez nous donner de plus en...
Can you give us more detail regarding the objectives related to the additional $15.5 million funding for processing temporary visas for workers, students, and visitors? And could you also elaborate on the Canada-Quebec Accord regarding Ukraine? Of course. First, I'd like to begin by thanking the member for the question and for thinking of the most vulnerable people in the world.
For the expenditures relating to operating costs and for the Canada-Quebec Accord. So it's important that we understand that the system can do what it's funded to do. We've actually got, in my remarks, I indicated for the operating expenditures, a much larger figure even than you cited, Mr. Al-Khouri. $118 million for IRCC's operating expenditures for the kinds of lines of business that you've seen. I described in detail during our last meeting some of the impacts of the pandemic on our processing capacity at the department. What we're actually starting to see as a result of these kinds of expenditures, in addition to hiring 500 new staff, in addition to increasing our levels plan, in addition to the $85 million that will be invested as a result of the economic and fiscal update and the digitization measures, we're actually starting to see that these investments are taking hold in a very meaningful way. We're seeing that in the first 2 months of this year, there's been 100,000 approvals for permanent residency, which has an extraordinary pace. We're seeing that people are going to be able to come here, including from Ukraine, and be applying and receiving open work permits that will allow them to work more effectively. I know you'll have more questions. I do want to address your question about the l'accord Canada-Quebec sur l'immigration. The supplementary estimates profile $46.8 million into this agreement. Quebec est unique au Canada.
Quebec is unique in Canada. For the whole country, the system does one thing for settlement and integration, but in Quebec it's different. Quebec maintains responsibility for selecting the people who come and for new arrivals. Quebec provides support for newcomers and for settlement agencies. So Canada has invested or transferred funds for Quebec, who will provide services.
Unique situation that we have when it comes to Quebec's control of their own immigration system, and our job is to fund it. And it's essential that they have the ability to set their immigration levels in accordance with their demographic weight, plus 5% under the accord, so they can maintain control to set their immigration levels at a stage that works for them.
Thank you. Excellent. Monsieur le ministre, advenant la confirmation.
Minister, should the PILOC initiative be confirmed for racialized women, do you think that we'll be exporting this kind of program to assist other marginalized groups?
I think there's a huge opportunity to do this. One of the things that we've learned over the last number of years across government departments when we started applying a gender-based analysis plus to all of our spending decisions in government, the intersectionalities a person lives with really impact the outcomes they experience with government programs. When we start to look at what impacts investments have on Francophone Canadians, on women, on racialized women, on people who live with these different immutable characteristics about themselves, we can actually target investments that improve the social outcomes they experience. I think this program is a recipe for success. If we start to apply it for people who live with different intersectionalities, we can actually enhance the quality of life that they get to enjoy when they arrive in Canada, and increasing the quality of life for Canadians is what government is all about.
10 seconds. 10 seconds. Pouvez-vous nous expliquer les mécanismes se trouvant de...
Can you explain the mechanisms behind recognition of professional titles, and should the success of this measure be confirmed, will it be possible to extend this to other sectors?
Opportunity in the other round, so time is up. We will now.
Merci, Monsieur le Ministre.
We will now.
Thank you, Minister.
Mr. Brunel Desaep for 2.5 minutes. Mr. Brunel Desaep.
Merci. Très rapidement, Monsieur.
Thank you. Very briefly, Minister. After a quick search, the Afghanistan line and the Ukraine line have the same phone number. So how can you tell us that they're two separate lines?
We've been tracking them separately with the calls that are coming in, and we have dedicated staff. My officials, I think if you want a quick answer from me now for more questions, can give more detail. But we have dedicated staff that are reserved specifically for Ukraine and are providing services.
I don't want to spend too much time on this, but it's the same phone number, so it's not two separate lines. Anyhow, maybe I'm teaching you something new, but you'll look into it, please. Now, am I to understand that the Bloc's proposal at the beginning of the conflict, asking for Ukrainians who are already on Canadian soil and who had and who were allowed to stay, have their permits extended, are we talking about at least 2 years now? Is that in your plan?
Yes, we will be extending open work permits on the same terms for people who arrive that are in Ukraine now.
That's a good example of collaboration between the parties. Absolutely. The Quebec government mentioned wanting to do its share. I think you have had conversations with Mr. Boulet. Yes. So how could I phrase this? So how is this actually going to take place? What is this assistance and collaboration going to look like when it comes to Ottawa-Quebec collaboration? Because Quebec really seems to want to do its share with refugees coming from Ukraine.
First, let me say thank you to the provinces, including the province of Quebec. There are details to be worked out exactly how they're going to deal with this. I've actually tried to point them into the direction of an organization that represents Francophone Ukrainians, but we have the opportunity to work with them. If they want to put their hand up and invite people to come to Quebec, we're willing to work with them. I think you can appreciate, since this is sort of days only that have taken place since the invasion began. There are some details to be worked out, but we want to capitalize on the goodwill of Quebec and all of the provincial governments we've been connecting with.
Oh, et rapidement, on parlait de bio.
Very briefly, you were talking about biometrics earlier. You said that 80% of refusals were found through biometrics. That's excellent. But that 80% represents what proportion of applications? I don't know whether you have that figure.
I don't have that figure in front of me, I'm afraid.
Si c'est possible de la produire pour le...
If you could table it for the committee, it would be appreciated, Minister.
Mr. Saab, your time is up. We will now
Oui,
proceed.
vous avez dit oui?
You said yes?
Information to provide, I'm happy to provide whatever.
Okay, parfait, merci.
We will.
Excellent, thank you.
Ms. Kwan, you have 2.5 minutes. You can please proceed.
Mr. Mohammed El-Zaza, at age 15, suffered from serious injuries as a result of drone strike in Gaza. Though he survived, but he suffered from serious injuries, but he's managed to make his way to Turkey seeking asylum. A Vancouver East church group submitted a private sponsorship application in January of 2021, and they were approved. Given Mohammed's health condition, and his mental health, by the way, is deteriorating rapidly, will the minister look into expediting this urgent application?
Look, we're happy to look into whichever cases, as I mentioned in my previous answer. And the reality is we want to do as much as we can to help some of the world's most vulnerable. I think it's a challenge, obviously, when you're dealing with so many crises around the world, trying to leverage every tool we have. But to the extent there are particularly urgent cases, we can always look into them. Of course, there are unique features of each case that I don't want to prejudge while I'm sitting at committee here today. But same offer as before. If you want to send details, we'll be happy to take a look.
Well, thank you. I've sent a letter on this case to the minister before, and I'll resend it again. And hopefully the minister and his office will look at this seriously and help and do what they can. Now, with respect to the issue around caregivers, many of the caregivers have been impacted, and IRCC, of course, quota for the cap for caregivers has already been reached. So many of them will have children who will age out as a result of that. And that means by the time they get a PR application process in and is accepted, they would not be able to bring their children here. Will the minister consider changing the policy to allow for caregivers' children application be considered at the age when they first started working in Canada under their work permit?
Look, that's a unique issue and a clever proposal, I must say. I'll have to make sure I do my homework because I've not had the opportunity to seek advice on this very specific issue that you've raised. But I think that's something unique because we don't want to be in the business of separating families. We want to be in the business of bringing them together. And I'd be happy to consider it, but I don't want to prejudge what lessons I may learn when I do my homework.
I'd be more than happy to provide whatever assistance or information to the minister and his officials in this situation to help with that. Related to this, many caregivers have not been able to pass their English language tests to the level that is required for PR. And they're also not able to meet the education.
Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Kwan. Your time is up. We will now proceed.
I'll follow up with the minister separately on this. Thank you.
We will now proceed to Mr. Genius. Mr. Genius, you will have 5 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Minister, for your service in this critically important area for our country. I want to pick up on some of the questions from Ms. Kwan about private sponsorship. This is something that I hear regularly about from stakeholders from different communities about the need to improve and strengthen our private sponsorship system. Minister, I've been disappointed that on a number of occasions, you have lied to the House of Commons about conservative proposals on refugee policy. For instance, you said to my colleague on February 14th, and this is a quote from you, I remind him that he campaigned during the election. He spoke about to bring precisely 0 Afghan refugees here. Moreover, if you look at their platform, we will see that they campaigned on a commitment to end government-assisted refugee stream altogether, which has resettled thousands of Afghan refugees who now call Canada home. End of quote. That's a quotation again from you. But here's what the Conservative platform actually said. The platform said on page 129, quote, "We will replace public government-assisted refugee places with more private and joint sponsorship places. All refugees in Canada will do so under private or joint sponsorship programs, with exceptions in cases of emergency." Again, with exceptions in cases of emergency. And the paragraph goes on to say, this does not mean a reduced financial commitment to refugee sponsorship or lower overall numbers of protected persons. It means that public dollars will be directed through joint sponsorship programs where newcomers benefit from community support and the better outcomes associated with private sponsorship. Now, Minister, if we're going to have an honest conversation about the changes that need to happen around private refugee sponsorship, we need to be honest about what each other are proposing, and it's fair to disagree, and it's fair to have those conversations. But I wonder if you'll commit today to stop lying about Conservative proposals and to have an honest conversation about the steps we can take to improve private sponsorship.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Let me start by reiterating my congratulations to the member on the recent addition. And I must say, particularly at the beginning of his question, the comments he made about service during this crisis are appreciated and characterize, frankly, the cross-partisan support I've seen on the...
Point of order, please.
1 second. Sorry for interrupting, Minister. There is a point of order. Mr. Al-Khoury?
Yes, please.
I've stopped the clock.
There was some word like lying or something expressed by our colleague. We would like to apologize to the Minister because not appropriate parliamentarian word to be said in a meeting like this meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Al-Khoury, for raising that. I would request all the members to please be polite with the witnesses and make sure that we don't use any unparliamentary language.
Excuse me, Madame la Présidente, j'insiste et je demande...
Madam Chair, I must emphasize this. I ask the person involved to present apologies to the Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Al-Khoury, for raising that. I'll just remind the member again, and I would request the Minister to please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My interest is in proceeding with the business of government, and to the extent that opposition members wish to frame their questions in a particular way, know that it rolls off my back. With respect to the Conservative campaign commitment, the way that it's been framed, I think could lead to a helpful debate around the role that something like the BVOR model, joint sponsorship, or the private sponsorship of refugees could be meaningfully advanced. And I think that's a healthy conversation to have. But the reality is the campaign commitment that you've just discussed suggests that there would be an end to the government-assisted refugee stream. Even in non-emergency situations, I don't think that that is a good idea to end that program altogether. One of the reasons is that particular program allows us to target the most vulnerable, not just those who have a connection to Canada. It allows us to respond to urgent situations that may not constitute an emergency. And I don't think that the commitment would have served the interests of the world's most vulnerable that Canada's system of refugee resettlement has been designed to support. That said, I do think it is a helpful opportunity for us to continue to work with settlement organizations, sponsorship agreement holders, and organizations who've got a history of settling successfully through the BVOR stream, for example, people who now live in the communities that I come from and right across Canada, because we do believe that private sponsorship can lead to superior outcomes in many instances.
Thank you, Minister. And I would, on the substantive policy question, I would counter that private organizations do an excellent job of identifying the most vulnerable. And in any event, if the government wishes to prioritize certain communities of highly vulnerable people, it would make sense for them to engage with private organizations on a joint sponsorship basis, because we know that refugees who come here through the social support, not just financial, but also the social and community support of private sponsorship, they have many advantages in terms of the success they experience when they get here. So we can put government dollars behind it, but let's leverage the advantages of both of those streams. But in any event, Minister, it sounds like you are acknowledging that the comment you made to the House of Commons, alleging that our commitment would have resulted in precisely 0 Afghan refugees, is inaccurate. Do you acknowledge that that was an inaccurate statement you made to the House?
No, I'm yet to see the Conservative pledge to settle any particular number of Afghan refugees.
We were explicit about it, sir, but it's in the platform, page 129.
Sorry for interrupting.
So just
Mr.
please
Janus.
review that before you make these kinds of comments in the future.
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Janus. Time is up. We will now end our first panel with Mr. Ali. Mr. Ali, you will have 5 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Minister, for joining us, and thank you for your hard work, especially in the current situation. Minister, in some recent correspondence, the High Commissioner of Pakistan raised a couple of issues. He points out that on the IRCC website, the processing time for visa application for Pakistan was 399 days, more than 13 months. Whereas the application from other countries in the region are between 34 and 70 days. He also points out that for the student direct stream, the number of Pakistani students visas has not increased, and the target processing time of 2 weeks has not been achieved. Minister, can you assure us that this situation is going to improve?
Thank you to my colleague for the question, and we're going to do everything we can to improve the processing time for study permits and for immigration more broadly. There are certainly frustrations that I appreciate that exist, but we are working every day to make sure that we're advancing measures that will improve these processing times. One of the things that I think we need to do as well is update our processing times on our website to better reflect what's happening on the ground. I think it's one area of improvement because sometimes we broadcast what service standards say, but it doesn't reflect the situation on the ground because the system's been hit so hard by pressures over the course of the pandemic. So I'm certainly willing to work with you to improve not just transparency in what we say about processing times, but actually improving the results for applications, including from the area of concern that you've raised.
Thank you, Minister. In continuation with one of my colleague asked a question about Afghan refugees and that visa center or processing centers doing it from Pakistan. And you didn't have enough time to complete your response into that one. Do you want to elaborate on that, if you kindly, please?
So one of the things that I'm interested in doing as we move to a more digitized and modernized immigration system, it actually creates the capability for us to leverage our entire global network of processing. And when we are able to deal with applications that come in a digital format, it creates an opportunity when an office in London may be slow or in New Delhi may be slow, to allow them to take on additional volumes that will be able to process people who otherwise would traditionally have to go to a particular office to deal with a paper application. So by digitizing the system and modernizing it, and then leveraging the global network of offices, we're going to have the opportunity to boost our processing capacity overall.
Thank you, Minister. One of my constituents, they happen to represent a mosque in my constituency. They actually reached out to me last night. One of their imams comes during the Ramadan. He's been coming for many years. They applied for his visa, and then that shows the processing time for 80 plus days. That's from India. But the Ramadan is coming in 30 days. This is religious workers. Would you have any preference of those sort of applications which might, given special circumstances, to
So we will look at, for different reasons, at prioritizing certain applications if there's a certain urgency to them. I think you can appreciate between personal events in a person's life or different circumstances like this, there are competing pressures. So I don't want to commit to anything in public before I've had the opportunity to look into it. If you do send me the file, we'd be happy to take a look purposefully. But I should point out that we want to encourage anyone else who's thinking of coming to Canada to apply as early as possible to allow us to avoid these kinds of circumstances, because at a certain point in time when there's so many applications that come in that need to be expedited, you will run into processing challenges that don't let you to prioritize everything, because if you prioritize everything, you prioritize nothing. So I would encourage anyone listening to apply as early as possible, and for those urgent situations that were unforeseeable, sometimes we're able to expedite application processing.
Thank you. Since I have a few seconds left, if you want to add something else, time is yours. Thank you, Minister.
Yeah, look, thank you. And maybe I'll conclude with this thought. I want to say thank you to each of my opposition critics and to my parliamentary secretary and to my caucus colleagues as well. I've had the opportunity to engage with folks over the past few days, and I've never seen such a collaborative spirit over the situation in Ukraine as I have in the past week. Whether it's my conversations around family sponsorship or the urgent need to get people here or making sure we do it in a way that keeps people safe, I just want to say how much I appreciate it and let you know that our conversations have directly informed some of the decisions that I've made. And I hope on issues going forward, we're able to continue to pursue that collaborative approach to advance the well-being of Canadians and some of the vulnerable people we're trying to get here. Merci beaucoup tout le monde. J'apprécie votre
Thank you very much, everybody. I appreciate your cooperation. It's been a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you, Minister. On behalf of all the members of this committee, I want to thank you for appearing before the committee. And I want to thank you for all the work which you are doing on behalf of all the Canadians in these unprecedented times. So thanks once again, and we will suspend the meeting for 2 minutes so that we can have the officials do the sound checks, and then we will resume our second panel. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Sean.
Pleasure. Thanks, everyone. Look forward to seeing you in person again soon.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Start with Mr. Jenis. Mr. Jenis, you will have 6 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please begin.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I want to pick up on some of the questions around private sponsorship of a bit more technical nature. If I or a group I was part of were to file a private sponsorship application today, how long would it take to process that application? When could I reasonably expect to see the family that I was sponsoring arrive here on Canadian soil?
Thanks, Madam Chair. And just quickly, congratulations on your re-election. So if you were sponsoring a group under a private sponsorship stream now, given the inventory that we have of applications that are there, I think it would probably be close to 3 years before they would arrive. Mr. Mills, do you want to add anything to that?
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Non, c'est effectivement...
Thank you, Chair. No, it's roughly 35 months, so 3 years of waiting time now to process that category of applicants, and that's because of the inventory that we have and all of the other situations that we're managing at the same time.
Working on structural changes to try to bring that down, or are we just kind of accepting that as an okay situation?
No, we're working hard to make improvements to that, both to bring our processing times down on this, as well, but to look at what supports we're offering to groups who are coming together to sponsor. And making sure that we're conscious too of vulnerabilities with respect to people coming, so that applications from PSR groups, from groups who want to sponsor, that they've got the capacity to live through that 1-year commitment that are around there. So that's a long answer to your question. Yes.
But I want to, and we can talk about the kind of capacity once people arrive and so forth afterwards. But I want to really focus on the backlog. What measures are you putting in place to try to reduce that 3-year timeline? And do you have a target for what you think is an acceptable amount of time for a private sponsor to wait?
So part of this is using some of those monies from that were in budget 2021 and are now starting to make their way through the estimates process to be able to hire additional people, to process on this. Last year, we actually overachieved on some of our PSR targets in terms of finalizing the decisions that were there. But we've had a number of obstacles over the last year and a half about people getting here. And it's not just the ability to come into the country, it's the capacity of other countries to issue exit permits, to get into camps, to be able to do the interviews that are necessary. The system has not been our friend in the last year and a half. And so being able now to pick up and to come back and to look at this and to get our standards down, I think is really important. The other thing to remember is when we have urgent protection cases, that we actually have a system that can move through that a little more quickly. So your answer on what's ideal in terms of private sponsorship, it would be great if that came down to about a year. And that's my opinion, Madam Chair.
Yeah, and I would just say, I appreciate the aspiration there. We need to do, from my perspective, so much better in this area. I mean, we've got situations where you have community groups, church groups that are funding that are funding the survival of people in other countries while they wait for years to have their application processed. So it's such a delay for them, and it's so much more expensive for the folks here in Canada who are trying to help them when people are in potentially dangerous situations, and they're being sponsored, they're just waiting in a queue, and it costs everybody more. So I think it's critically important that we address this. Let me move to another issue. The minister spoke about housing for unvaccinated asylum seekers. Can you just share a bit more about how that works? Are those asylum seekers expected to pay some proportion of the cost? What is the individual commitment, the public commitment, and how does that process work in terms of providing housing to people in that situation?
So for asylum seekers who enter Canada and are claiming asylum, and maybe we'll look at the situation around Roxham Road on this. For those who have a clear plan, first of all, for those who are vaccinated, or for those who have a clear plan for quarantine, they're processed and they're on their way. For those who do not, so for those who are not vaccinated and do not have a quarantine plan, then we have rooms in hotels where we place people until their quarantine period is complete. And they're able to move into other social housing systems. So no, we don't charge people for the time in the hotel.
So just to clarify, because I'm almost out of time, the government of Canada is paying for those hotel rooms for pending asylum claimants who are unvaccinated.
You are correct.
Okay.
Thank you. Your time is up, Mr. Jenius. We will now proceed to Ms. Kayabaga. Ms. Kayabaga, you have 6 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I would like to thank our witnesses for being here today. So I just want to start my question around the racialized newcomer women pilot. And my first question would be around the $4.2 million that's allocated to support these women in
thanks for the question. On the percentage that's allocated to Francophone service provider organizations who deliver these programs, on that, I think we're going to have to get back to you. Unless one of my colleagues wants to chime in on that one, broken down by linguistic barriers. In terms of the type of programming that's offered, I'm going to ask Ms. Campbell Jarvis if she would like to add to that.
Yes, thank you very much for the question. So the program provides a range of different services and support, including women-only employment and language support, childcare, and what is particularly important is the women-targeted mentoring and the social connections, because this really creates that sense of community and enables women to gain exposure and sponsorship in finding employment and other social connections. There's also a dimension that provides some gender-based violence support for family, which is really important for traumatized women as well. So it's quite an all-encompassing program that we're really quite proud of.
Thank you. That's a really good answer to hear that there is some gender-based violence support for women, especially if they're Islam seekers, they're coming from war-torn countries. There's probably that need. I do, however, want to push a little bit more on that question. I didn't really fully understand what portion of it is allocated for Francophone women who are in this program, or maybe if I can stretch my question around how many of these women in this pilot project are Francophone women.
Madam Chair, we're going to have to get back on that. I don't have those numbers at my fingers, and which of our Francophone service provider organizations are participating in the pilot, and then what percentage of clients who would be Francophone under that. So we'll have to get back to the committee on that.
Okay, I'm not looking to get an idea of which organizations are Francophone organizations are involved. I kind of want to get a general idea of how many women who are involved in this program are of Francophone background.
I wish I had the number at my fingertip, Madam Chair. We will have to get back to the committee on the number of Francophone women.
Thank you.
How much time?
Yeah, you are at 3:19.
Okay, well, my questions are going to be centered around the Francophone part, so I don't know how much they can answer if they have to get back to the committee with that. Maybe they can comment on the knowledge of some of the barriers that women are facing in this pilot program and how much information they have to be able to have an informed response through this program.
Thanks, Madam Chair. The program looks at a number of things, and Ms. Campbell-Jarvis has highlighted this. One, and I'll speak, it was a conversation I had with a woman in Vancouver who runs a part of this, and it was with respect to entrepreneurs. And so being able to use this pilot on racialized women who are coming in and doing better training around entrepreneurialism, starting their own business, starting their own small business. What are some specific barriers to the women that were there and being able to overcome these barriers? And a lot of it related to network, and a lot of it related to links in the community, and being able to get people in contact with the right people that were there. And she was particularly happy about the results that they had.
So, Madam Chair, if I can just make this comment, I think my question really centers around the idea that I want to bring to the committee is that there are a number of refugee women who are of Francophone background, and we have targets to increase our Francophone immigration. And I think it would be important for us to know what the numbers are on that target and how much we're allocating the time to, or the space to include Francophone women. And there's so much avenues that we could work on to increase, one, that Francophone immigration across the country of Canada, and also want to advocate for the Francophone women to be included in such projects as this, and helping them get into the workforce and start businesses as they settle here in Canada. That's where my question was. But I'll just ask one last question, if they can comment on For the youth employment skills strategy that we've committed to young people, what kind of barriers are they facing? And I'm sure we'll get some answers around how many of those young people as well are Francophone background.
First, Madam Chair, just let me say we agree completely on the need to make sure that these programs are available to Francophone women, to Francophone refugees, to Francophone youth. We know that's happening. I just don't have the number that's happening right now, and that will have to come back on. I think that was a red card for me to stop.
Thank you. Yeah, like if you can submit the information to the committee, that would be really great. We will now proceed to Mr. Brunel Desaep. Mr. Brunel Desaep, you will have 6 minutes. You can please proceed.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Bienvenue à tous.
Thank you, Chair, and welcome to all witnesses once again. Delighted to have you with us today so that you can keep us informed and answer our questions. Yesterday, we learned that there are 25,000 skilled workers in Quebec who are waiting for an answer from your department. Some have been waiting since 2018. And even immigration lawyers are going to be suing your department. I think it's high time to resolve this. Do you think it's to be expected that people should be waiting since 2018? It's a question for everybody.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question. Just a moment. I have trouble. I'm hearing the interpreting. Very well. So there are two parts to your questions. The first part, is it a good thing for the immigration system? And the answer is no. It's not our service standard. But there are 2 points that are involved in resolving the problem. One is the space and the levels, and that's an issue with Quebec. And the other is our capacity to process applications. I would ask Mr. Mills to elaborate on that matter. Thank you for the question. The member is right. There's quite an inventory in terms of skilled workers from Quebec, and we're working very hard to reduce that inventory to the extent possible. I'm very proud to be able to see today that in the first 2 months of this year, we finalized over 7,500 applications for skilled workers from Quebec. So we are working very, very hard to reduce that inventory. Last year, it's true that with the pandemic, we saw all kinds of delays because a lot of these applications were in paper, and we have implemented processes to make the applications electronic. So we digitalized these applications. And after the digitization, we'll be able to use employees across Canada to be able to assist in resolving the situation or to process these files. But as the Deputy Minister said, we are limited by the number of spaces in Quebec's reference levels for the kind of processing that we can do every year. But don't forget that in 2020, not many cases were processed. You could have caught up on all the backlogs. Well, we'll not go back on history now. I'm very happy if you're telling me that things are moving forward. I hope that you're not going to end up spending too much time in court with immigration lawyers. Now, can anybody tell me today, how much has it cost since the beginning of 2022 to have the Roxham Road asylum seekers? What did it cost? Do we have figures? Maybe this is too specific a question, but could somebody provide the information to the committee? It would be appreciated. Can somebody indicate whether this is going to be done? I apologize, Madam Chair. I was on mute. I think we've got the figures. Dr. Giles, do you have the figures? I do not at this moment, but perhaps our CFO has this. If not, we can submit them after. That would be good for us to have that figure. Thank you very much. Thank you for your work. Now, On the PM's website, it says that there's an increase in operating capacity in the regions for Ukrainian nationals and for the countries, neighboring countries, i.e. Poland. Does that mean more staff? Yes, Madam Chair. We have increased the number of individuals in the region. We have also increased the systems capacity in the regions with the biometric kits and with the capacity in the regions. Excellent, and congratulations for that. That was a good decision. Now, why wouldn't we do the same thing by sending more staff to Pakistan for our friends, the Afghan refugees? If we could do it for Ukraine, why can't we do it for the Afghans? Why can't we send more staff to Pakistan? Again, thank you for the question. In reality, we did send more people to Pakistan. And this was to assist with the refugee situation in that country. All right, let's check the figures and see whether it's to the same degree and was done as seriously as what's been done with Ukraine. And a last question, since I don't have much time. Do you think it's acceptable to have the acceptance rate for foreign students at McGill is 90%, whereas for University of Quebec at Trois-Rivières, it's 21% in 2021? It's your department who has been doing that, accepting and refusing. Is that a regular rate, Mr. Mills? Madam Chair, thank you for the question. I do not have the exact figures in front of me. Well, I'm giving you 90% for McGill, 21% for UQTR in terms of the acceptance rate of foreign students. Well, you have to look at you have to see what the countries from which the applications were coming from.
Interrupting. Time is up. We will now proceed to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you will have 6 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you very much, to the officials. I'd like to find out to what extent has IRCC processed the emails that Afghans were directed to send to the government? In other words, how many of those emails have received a response from IRCC and how many are being processed? And by way of response, I don't mean the automatic response that they get.
Thanks, Madam Speaker. Okay, I'm going to try and work my way through. We had a significant number of emails that came into the department during the time. It was about 300,000. We've worked our way through those numbers.
Sorry, if I could just get the numbers, that would be great.
So we have worked our way through all of those emails, which means they've had a response of one kind or another. So from an email perspective, that's what we've done in our department. Perhaps I'm not understanding the question well.
Well, the response that people get is a stock answer response that basically says, thank you very much, and we'll we have received your email. But in terms of the processing of the cases that come with those emails, where are we at with the processing of those cases?
So for the processing of the cases, and I'm going to divide it into a couple of different groups. So if I look at those who had a connection to Canada, those who served Canada in one form or another, we've processed about 14,000 applications. And in terms of what's come in. And on top of that, we had a commitment that the minister announced last summer around 15 spaces, either as government-assisted refugees or privately sponsored refugees. And those were Afghanis outside of Afghanistan. And we have on that applications in. We have about half of those applications in. And they're in process. I can tell you numbers who have arrived.
Perhaps I can actually get the officials to send those numbers in. And we're taking a long time to get these numbers, and I don't have that much time. So if I can get a detail for the committee, the numbers of how many applications have been processed, how many of them have been completed, and how many of them are still waiting for completion, that would be appreciated. And the The deputy mentioned that is for those who have a connection. What about those applications where people are not interpreters or collaborators? And so that is to say those who may have family members here who are in Canada and have connections that way, if any of those are being processed at all, and if so, how many?
Yeah, absolutely. Oops. Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry, Madam Chair. Yeah, absolutely. And so we look at this in three groups. And so one of those three groups are those interpreters who came to Canada in 2009 and 2012, an extended family for those interpreters. So we have the first little more than 1,000 applications in on those now. Those are being processed. The second group are those that are private sponsored or government assisted outside of the group on CIMMs. About half of those applications are in. All the spaces are allocated, but half are in.
Thank you. If I could get those specific numbers, not half and, but exact numbers on those under what category, that would be appreciated. If we can get those submitted to the committee then. Yep. I'd like to move on to the next question. How many applications under the HCCP and HSWP that were submitted in 2018 and 2019 by mail have not been processed to date?
Just say those categories again, please.
The HCCP and HSWP that were submitted in 2018 and 2019 by mail that have not been processed to date. If the officials can send that information to the committee in writing, I would appreciate it.
We're happy to do it. I think Mr. Mills may have an answer for you, though.
Okay, then very quickly.
Oui, merci, Madame la Présidente. J'ai pas les...
Thank you, Chair. I don't have the detail for each of the categories, but I can tell you that in the current inventory, we have 250 individuals who applied in 2018.
So if I could get the information in writing then, because that's what I need to know. While some caregivers' applications have received their PR under the TR to PR stream, others have not received an AOR. So in this instance, can the officials provide the information on how many applications are processed and how many are still stuck in the system? So this is the TR to PR for caregivers.
Mr. Mills?
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. On va devoir revenir au comité avec la réponse.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're going to have to come back to the committee with the answers. Thank you.
All right, perhaps we can also then get the detailed information under the TR to PR stream, broken down by the categories of individuals, how many have been processed and how many are still waiting to be processed. So caregivers as well as other professions as well. As mentioned to the Minister, the lock-in date for dependent children for caregivers means that they will age out. And given that the HCCP cap has been reached already as early as January 17, 2022, that means they have to wait another 12 months to even make an application. In the meantime, many of their documentations, the medicals, language test results, security checks, etc., will likely expire. So will the ministry consider extending the validity dates for these documents?
Thank you, Madam Chair, for that question. And may I say, I was quite intrigued by the member's earlier comment about
sorry for interrupting. Sorry for interrupting. Maybe we can come back in the next round. The time is up for Ms. Kwan. We will now proceed to Mr. Helen. Mr. Helen, you will have 5 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the officials for being here. I wanted to follow up on a question by my bloc colleague in regards to the resources used for the hotline that have been used for Afghan and Ukrainians. He noted that the number is the same. Are the resources the same for both?
Thanks for that question. And just let me clarify. The number may be the same, but once you call the number, you get options. And so one of the options is Ukraine, one of the options is Afghanistan. And so there are specific resources devoted to that Ukrainian hotline. There are specific resources devoted to Afghanistan. And so we've also reached out to other departments to also beef up our capacity to be able to make sure that we can continue to do that in a timely manner.
Thank you for that. Now, the minister had noted that it would take 12 to 14 weeks to implement visa-free travel. That seems a little bit unreasonable. Why would it take so long to do this?
Imposing or lifting a visa on a country is a complicated business. And so it involves a number of steps. It involves a memorandum to cabinet. It involves regulatory change. It involves changes to our system. It involves changes to systems of our partners who are there. And those steps take some time.
I know someone that's called the Ukrainian hotline twice now that's trying to get their parents here. Their application was filed about a year ago. Both times he's called, they've said both times that there is no priority on his case because it's an older case, and he's trying to bring his parents from Ukraine. Is there something being done to address this issue?
Madam Chair, I'm really glad that the honourable member has raised this because first, I think that's a bit of disinformation. And so we'll go back to the call line and we'll make sure that's corrected. The commitment that the government made is that we are putting a priority on all our applications in the system from Ukrainian nationals. And that includes those for sponsorship, exactly as he has recommended. And so thanks for bringing that to our attention. We'll make sure that's corrected.
Appreciate that. Will any of those new measures that were implemented today, especially the one to pathway to PR for Ukrainians, will people have to reapply that have current applications in?
No, people will not have to reapply with current applications in. What I think what the minister made an announcement this morning will be a special dedicated an expanded family sponsorship pathway. And so we're just sorting out the program details for that now, but people who have applications in under other streams should absolutely keep those applications there. They will not need to reapply, and we'll continue to put an emphasis and to drag those applications to the front of the queue.
Now, given that we've seen what we would say is a failure in Afghanistan, and now we see the situation in Ukraine, would that visa-free travel be something in the future that could be implemented or be ready to go by the department for later on, just in case this happens in other countries?
Visa-free travel for which country? Sorry, Madam Chair.
I mean, for the system right now, we cannot handle that right now. Is there something we can do within our infrastructure to have that ready to go for other countries, that if it would happen, if a war would break out in other countries?
Well, I'll come back, Madam Chair, to there are lots of reasons why we have a visa on specific countries. And so we'll come back to looking at security issues in a country, looking at whether or not what their rate of immigration violations are. We have a framework that looks at visas who are there. It's a pretty transparent framework. I'm happy to share that with the committee on what are the issues that we look at on how we do that, or how we would even move to something like ETA 2.0 that we have with Brazil.
Can we also get from the officials, Madam Chair, to table, because there was applications that were pending and just stuck from Afghanistan for not just interpreters, but for the Sikh, Hindu, and Hazara communities prior to the fall of Kabul. Those, I asked the minister previously as well, those people do not see any hope to come to Canada anymore because they don't see any priority given, and Afghans
Sorry for
themselves
interrupting,
as well.
Mr. Hallen.
Can we please have that tabled? The numbers.
Of course, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Madam Tepley. Time is up. We will now proceed to MP Ali for 5 minutes. MP Ali, you can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to officials for being here. I have one question. Could you please walk us through that the visa application from Pakistan and the refugee application from Afghanistan, in which countries those are being processed? And would you have any consideration moving that visa services back into Islamabad office? Please.
Thanks, Madam Chair, for that. One of the beauties of having electronic applications is that we can move those applications throughout our system. And so if we have some spare capacity in Beijing, or we have some spare capacity in Ottawa or Mississauga or Sydney or wherever in our network, we're able to absolutely be the most efficient possible on how we process those applications. Having all applications for a particular area in a particular spot makes it more difficult for us to do that. Now, there are some reasons why we need local expertise on specific applications. There may be reasons for interviews around that, where we want to move it in. So I think it's just a little more complicated than simply saying we should process all applications from X country in X spot. And just giving us the flexibility to do that really helps us better meet our service standards.
No, thank you. Thank you. Just through Madam Chair, follow up on the same question. We do have a facility in Islamabad, and why it's not being used? And if we're going electronically, then why do we have different visa offices in the different countries? So it's just wanted to.
Well, Madam Chair, I want to assure the honourable member that we are using our facilities in Islamabad. We have an office in Islamabad. We have 13 Canada-based officers there, I believe. And we are processing there, but we are also processing those applications elsewhere. And we are using it to our full capacity. The other thing we use in Islamabad is our visa application center, so that we're able to collect biometrics, we're able to do other things that are there. Those things all work in concert together.
Thank you. Just one more follow-up brief question. That's, do we do the interviews there as well in Islamabad, or that the applicants have to travel to different countries?
No, we would do interviews in Islamabad. We have done some interviews virtually during the pandemic. That's worked out very well. I think it provides much better client service. But we would do interviews in Islamabad, absolutely.
Thank you so much. And I have another, one of my constituents, he's from Afghanistan. He has 3 brothers, they live close by Kabul. They have applied for the refugee, under refugee stream, given the current situation, but they haven't received any response from IRCC, and my office tried to reach out to IRCC. We can't find any answer for them. Would you please walk us through if there's anything we could do for the people who have their close relations into Afghanistan?
Well, Madam Chair, we have our existing programs. And so, when we work and when we walk through those, but in terms of special programming for Afghanistan and what we've done, we have a big commitment around those who serve Canada, either with the military or with global affairs, and who were there. We have a second commitment that's focused on government-assisted refugees and privately sponsored refugees of Afghanistans who have fled, who are outside of Afghanistan. We also have, as I think the honourable member has noted, considerable inventory that already exists of Afghanis seeking protection who are there, thinking to come through those streams. And the third is the family reunification stream that we've stood up for those individuals who came out in 2009 and 2012. And those are the 3 streams that we're looking at for Afghanistan.
Thank you. I only have 30 seconds. As a quick question, what mechanism were in place and what additional effort went into achieving the immigrants level for 2021? Can you quickly respond to that, please?
We used a lot of innovative practices, but what it came down to is we focused on what was achievable and what was possible. And that was looking at landings for many who were already in Canada.
Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Tapley. Time is up for Mr. Ali, so we will now proceed to Mr. Brunel Desep for 2.5 minutes. Mr. Brunel Desep, you can please begin.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thanks again to our witnesses for being with us. Now, when we talk about backlogs of 25,000 skilled workers, and lawyers are taking you to court. So these are not excuses when you say that there are risks of discrimination with artificial intelligence. When you talk about francophones, you said you're comfortable with this, and when you say that 90% acceptance rates for foreign students to McGill and 21% to UQTR, University of Quebec and Trois-Rivières, 29% at Université de Québec and Rimouski, and 40% at University of Quebec and Chicoutimi, and even 55% in Laval for Laval University. You're looking again for reasonable excuses. So I have to wonder, is there a problem in your department? Maybe it's that you're not able to recognize that there's a problem. First of all, you have to be able to identify a problem to be able to address it. But it's my impression that everything is being given excuses for. I'd like someone to say, is there a problem in recognizing where there's a problem in your department? Thank you.
Oh, merci.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I struggle with that question. So, you have to ask yourself, what are we looking at when we approve student applications? So the first thing we're looking at does this person really want to come to Canada to study? And so where's your acceptance from the institution? Where is this? Is this a legitimate student application? The second thing we look at, Madam Chair, is can this student support themselves when they're in Canada? So you have to be able to show us that you're able to support yourself when you're here. And, we have heard stories about this, and student fees are high. The average student fee to come as an international student is $34,000 a year. And if you can't demonstrate to us that you're able to support yourself, then you're open to big vulnerability.
Excusez-moi, Madame la Présidente, mais
apologies, Madam Chair. Again, I'm being told that students who want to go to Trois-Rivières are not able to meet their needs, whereas those who want to go to McGill can. That makes no sense as an answer, Madam Chair. Again, it's totally unreasonable.
Well, Madame la Présidente, ça dépend de...
Well, Madam Chair, it depends on the country.
Approval rates are different countries, but we're looking at the same things when we go through this. Can you support yourself? Are you showing us an intention that if things don't work out for you in Canada, that you're prepared to go home at the end?
Thank you. Sorry for interrupting. Mr. Brunel Desailles. Sorry for interrupting. Time is up. Sorry, Madam Tapley. We will now proceed to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you will have 2.5 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you. I'd like to give 30 seconds to Ms. Jarvis to give an answer to my last question.
Yes, thank you. So thank you, Madam Chair. So in order to respond, a couple of points I wanted to clarify. Madam Chair, I'd be very interested in receiving information from Ms. Kwan about the children aging out issue, because my understanding is exactly that of Ms. Kwan, the members, that the families are assessed at the time of application, and it moved forward in that pace. So that aging out issue is an unfamiliar one to me. So I'd be very interested to learn a little bit more about that.
I'll be happy to send the information to the officials and to the minister. Okay, moving on to the next issue. From previous Immigration Committee studies, witnesses have suggested that the government look at changing the education and language testing requirements for caregivers. Has the ministry done any work on this?
Thank you. Yes, the quick answer is we are always looking at ways that we can improve the program, and frankly, looking at ways that the pilot has told us the program doesn't work. And so we'll continue to examine that, and we'll continue to push on that. And I just encourage the honourable member to reach out to us as well with information that she has in this particular area. It's helpful to us on how we assess
Absolutely.
this
I will be happy to bring forward that information. We've studied this issue. Witnesses have raised it continually. If the ministry is looking at this, we actually need the change to be done, because people are not meeting it, and there are those who's been in the system for years because of the language testing requirements. They are not able to fulfill the PR application requirements. So I'll be happy to follow up with the ministry, I guess, with Ms. Tapley directly on this. Due to this strain of separation, many migrant caregivers, mostly women, end up separating from their spouses. In the past, immigration accepts separation agreements to exclude spouse in their PR application. However, this policy has now changed, and they now require to provide divorce papers or legal separation documentations, which is lengthy and expensive. So will the ministry consider going back to the previous system and accept separation agreements? This is particularly important in the Philippines because the process is very long and very expensive. Can I just get a quick answer? Yes, no?
We'll have to come back on that one.
I'll follow up with you on that then as well.
Thank you. Based on the time left, we will have 2 minutes for Mr. Benzon and then 2 minutes for Mr. Dhaliwal, and then we will go into votes for the supplementary estimates. So, Mr. Benzon, you will have 2 minutes. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, witnesses. I guess I'll just ask one quick question on the estimates here, and you requested $8 million for the initiative on the issuance of proof of vaccination credentials for international travel. I still have constituents calling me saying that they're having sometimes issues getting other countries to accept their vaccination credentials. So could you talk a little bit about where you are on that initiative and the status of it right now and some of the challenges you face having Canadian vaccination credentials accepted in other countries?
Thank you for the question. On this one, the monies that are there, we worked heavily with provinces and territories, and the system that we had, I think, is very user-friendly at the end, and you'll see it on, I live in Ontario, so if I look at my Ontario proof of vaccination credential that was issued by the provincial government, that shows my vaccine record. Like, there's a little Government of Canada word mark in the top, and it's that little Government of Canada word mark that helps us have that consistent standard so that other countries should be recognizing what we're providing and what we're doing there. If there are specific countries where there are particular problems, I am happy to take that back and talk to my colleagues both at the Public Health Agency and Health Canada and make sure that those roadblocks aren't there, because the system that was put in place with TTs should absolutely work.
Well, that's good. And the $8 million that you requested, I mean, that's a limit that you don't need more than that. That's everything's been accomplished at that point.
I think there will be more that probably comes through in mains and supplementary estimates around this in future years, but I believe that's covered. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Time is up. We will now end our panel with Mr. Dhaliwal. Mr. Dhaliwal, you will have 2 minutes. You can please begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I want to thank the IRCC calling center as well as the MED, the amount of calls they get from our office and then the service that we provide to our constituents with their help. My question is on the super visa. Madam Chair, every week or every month I get tens of calls that super visa for the parents is waiting for over a year, where there is a need for those parents to be united with the kids here. And I'm just wondered what the department is doing to deal with that situation that's waiting for super visas over a year.
But thank you for your comments. Thank you for the question. So that's part of our backlog reduction strategy, and to be able to bring those timelines for that super visa way back down into our service standards. So now that the border has reopened for discretionary travel, now the parents and grandparents are able to come on that super visa. We need to get that number down, and that's the backlog reduction strategy that's both focused on new applications that are coming in, but existing applications that are already there. Mr. Mills, would you like to comment?
Oui, merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente, pour la question.
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. This is a situation that we're working very hard on. We're trying to reduce the processing time. The member is correct. in that we were dealing with 10 to 11 months of processing time, but now we're talking about 6 months. So we've really worked extremely hard to reduce processing time, and we are going to continue to do so in the months and weeks to come so as to be able to reduce the inventory of these super visas.
Time is up. Thank you.
Thank you.
So with this, our round of questioning comes to an end. We need to vote on the supplementary estimate C 2021-22. So can I proceed with the votes?
Madam Chair, can we adopt on division?
I'll go one by one and then we can go. So shall votes 1C under Department of Citizenship and Immigration be carried?
On division.
On division, carried. Shall vote 10C under Department of Citizenship and Immigration carry?
On division.
Carried.
Carried on division. Shall vote 15C under Department of Citizenship and Immigration carry?
On division.
Carried.
Carried on division. Shall vote 20C under Department of Citizenship and Immigration carry?
Carried. Carried.
Carried on division. Shall vote 1C under Immigration and Refugee Board carry?
On division.
Carried.
Carried on division. Shall I report the votes on the supplementary estimate C 2021-2022 to the House?
Yes, today.
Okay. Thank you. Before we adjourn, just a quick a few things. I need to bring it to the attention of all the members. On March 22nd, we will commence our study on differential outcomes. On March 24th, the Minister will appear for the first hour on differential outcomes with officials for the second hour. The appearance on the mains will be scheduled based on the committee schedule and availability of the Minister. Just to inform all the members, tomorrow we have an additional meeting so that we can give drafting instructions to our analyst that this meeting will be held from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. So hope everyone has got the Zoom link for that. And there will be arrangements to have the meeting in person for those who want to attend in person. So with that...
Thank you, Madam
Yes,
Chair.
Ms. Kwan.
Before you adjourn, I'd like to just raise a point of order. I don't know if this is a problem with other MPs, but when some of the officials were speaking, it seemed to me that there was like a loud echo going on. And so I don't know if that was happening or is it just on my own ear set. If this is happening, then I would ask that we look into that because that's, I'm sure, is problematic for the interpreters as they have to continually to deal with this.
If any of the members feel an echo during the meeting, please interrupt, let me know, and we can always check. Mr. Dhaliwal?
Yes, I found the same issue as Madam Kwan said.
Mr. Dhaliwal, Madam Lalonde?
I did not experience that same situation.
If there is any issue during the committees going on, please let me know. And we will make sure that we look into the issue of interpretation and the sound. So with that, I would just take a moment on behalf of all the members of the committee to thank all the officials for appearing before the committee. Thanks a lot for your time in this busy schedule. Thanks for all the efforts and the work which you are doing to make sure that the programs can be rolled out on a moment time, and with all what's happening around the world, you have been under a lot of pressure. So thank you for all the work which you do on behalf of all the members. Is it the will of the committee to adjourn the meeting?
Yes.
Okay, the meeting is adjourned.
Thank you. Bye-bye.